I was to, and when I do, teach first year writing, for example, I think about how citations do the work that they do and why it is that they do it, and we try to look at different value systems implicit in citations and why it is that those matter to the people who have created those citation standards, and how it is that those support institutions and how those institutions are related to their cultural and economic mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so we layer it out at several layers at once through several specific kinds of citation activities. So, but with graduate students, I think I would take the more conceptual framing of that and start with decolonial understandings of intellectual property, and then really work through and try to produce different kinds of knowledge products that could potentially shape the ways in which property comes to be understood and composition and rhetoric. For my classes, more so than any particular pedagogical or curricular nuts and bolts.
The way that I approach intellectual property comes through a dual lens of my own research. So on one hand, I'm interested in interrogating how dominant Western practices of knowledge making can contribute to the disauthorization of non-Western peoples, of non-Western cultures, non-Western rhetorical production, non-Western ways of knowing and being in the world. And then the second leg of that inquiry is really the reactivation or restitution or reclamation of indigenous and Latino, pre-Hispanic forms of knowing in rhetorical production. So with that dual lens, what I tend to do, and I'm thinking about this pedagogically because there's never a time when I'm not, that I come to think about intellectual property through this lens. And so we know that the Latin root, proprietas, is on one hand grounded in Western Europe at a time, historically, at a time when Western Europe itself was not really in existence the way that Western Europe is now. Mm-hmm. So it would not be accurate for us to say that Romans of antiquity would have articulated this idea of property as necessarily universal. In other words, as applying to all peoples across the planet. The false universalization of that might come a little bit later. Not even with Roman imperialism, but maybe even later. Like I'm thinking the Enlightenment. I tend to kind of go back to the Enlightenment and the dawn of modernity. So what I tend to do is I try to complicate that and how can I, with students, how can I make intellectual property as unfamiliar as possible?
Our concept of intellectual property is very heavily invested in sort of the Western tradition of copyright and everything that entails, including kind of capitalist concerns. And I don't know that those principles, in fact, I'm pretty sure that they don't apply in a variety of other countries. So these things tend to be negotiated by a variety of trade agreements of one sort or another. Mm-hmm. But it would be, as more and more of our academic work is becoming international, and we're having international conferences, I think that I would really like to know a lot more about how IP is looked at and concerned and treated by a variety of other countries around the world.
I find myself more and more in recent years having discussions in class when I work with a variety of collaborative designs in my classes. Sometimes it's small groups, sometimes it's pairs, sometimes it's whole class teams. Sometimes part of the students are here on our residential campus, and some of them are online and study abroad, for instance. I've not yet done cross-campus collaborations, although I'd really like to. And we end up sometimes having discussions about the tensions between understanding yourself as part of a team, understanding collaborative work, especially if we have a setup where we have people who are drafting and then another group coming in and editing and another group coming in and structuring, if we've broken up tasks that way. What does it mean to claim work if they understand the theoretical implications of this, but what does it mean then when it's time to put together your market portfolio? What does it mean when it's time, to go up for a raise and say, these are my contributions? And I find myself having that discussion a lot with women students who are perhaps not as culturally conditioned to claim their work as theirs in some ways, if that makes sense. To say these are my contribution to a team. This is what I did. And so we have some conversations about how to function collaboratively, how to understand yourself as being part of a distributed environment, being open to other people's contributions, not being afraid to offer your own contributions to other people's writing, but then still be able to describe the value that you and your contributions have brought to that project. And it's messy. There's not an easy answer. We have a lot of, talk about the fact that you should not be afraid to say what it is that you've done here, which seems to be news to them more often than I would like it to be.